Ladies and gentlemen, in the past few months, we've seen that Praggnanandhaa is winning so many tournaments. And despite having a great calculation, he started being very tricky in the openings. In today's video, we are mainly focusing on black repertoire against the first move e4, when Praggnanandhaa is usually responding with Sicilian. We're gonna mainly focus on Rossolimo with black pieces. So let's start. Praggnanandhaa Ramesh Babu likes to play on e4 c5, knight f3, knight c6. Currently now he's also doing some experiment with e6 and a6 con-Sicilian, but his main repertoire is knight c6. That's also something what he played in the past. And now since the open Sicilian after knight c6 is not really popular anymore because there is a lot of tricky variations in the Kalashnikov variation here, and also his solid and very good understanding in Sveshnikov puts a lot of problems to white, people simply start playing against him the move bishop e5. And the solution that Praggnanandhaa brings against Rossolimo is not any g6, the most popular move, is not any e6, one of the most complicated moves, is the move knight f6 here. So what he wants with this move, and how actually black is creating the play from this variation. Why is this variation different than the other variations? Specifically here now white has a couple of options how to defend this pawn on e4. And one of the most logical way of defending this pawn is by playing the move d3. But here actually d3 is already dubious move. I cannot say it's mistake, but it's already very dubious move. The reason why it's because directly comes to the move queen a5 check. And now the only move to defend this bishop and block the check is the move knight c3. After that, knight e4 puts already some questions where this bishop goes, because we are simply threatening this bishop, and on the other hand, when the bishop moves back, then we simply strike with b5. Here, already black is the one that provides the initiative, and after b5, bishop has two options. He can go bishop to d5, and he can go bishop back to b3. In the case of bishop to b3, which looks very logical and very safe option, in that case we can simply eliminate this bishop, and now white would like to recapture with a pawn, but since the pawn is pinned, that's not the case here, and after c takes, after b4, the position is completely demolished, and black is having bishop pair plus better pawn structure. What he actually needs here to do is just find a way to get out with his bishops. And it's actually really easy, because after something like knight f4, e6, one of the bishops will come on b7, one on e7, black will go castle, and at some point we can even provide d5, or we can also just go d6 or e5, and now these pawns will feel very strange. To not talk about that this bishop can also come on a6 and put a pressure on this pawn in the future. So after the move b5, in case of they going to d5, here we can simply eliminate the bishop again with this knight. And after pawn takes d5, bishop to b7, let's say castles, because if they don't castle, we have simply bishop takes here, since we have a pin. So when they castle, e6, takes, and now after they attack the pawn on d4, we can safely defend this pawn. This pawn is hanging, that means if they take it, we can take back with f-pawn, and suddenly this diagonal gets open. After castles, the f-line is there. We can also bring the queen back here on this diagonal, and we have so powerful position. Our pawn structure looks very, cramped here and not natural. And if you feel that, you can always recapture with the d-pawn, but you can also mainly recapture with the f-pawn. So this position is very bad after the move d3 for white. Just practically speaking, queen a5 is immediately punishing this move. So d3 is not a move. The second most popular move here is the main move knight c3, but there is also an option for them to immediately go for the move e5. And this move is possible, and it's usually transposing lately in the line where they later play the move e5, but we can just quickly take a look what happens if this is something what white aims after the knight f6 variation. So after knight c3, knight c7, that's how usually we are playing this line, and after bishop takes e6, d takes e6, the point is we want to bring this bishop to g7. This bishop usually goes to g4, followed by castles and trying to occupy these middle squares with our pieces. So some sample line can look like after knight e4 we can defend the pawn on c5, d3 bishop g4, and even though we can eliminate this knight here since this is a great protector over the e5, and you know, if we simplify a little bit we're gonna relieve the space, so we're not gonna have a pressure from our opponent, and generally white will not provide any danger to our king. g6, bishop e3, bishop g7. After castles we are reaching the ideas even with f6, followed by knight e5, knight e6, queen d7, not queen d6 here, followed by rook d8, and it's amazing position for black. So what people usually do here is the move knight c3. And here comes the fun now. Here you can play two moves. Praggnanandhaa played both of them, queen c7 and g6. g6 is very aggressive and I'm recommending you to learn it very well because it's simply entering the move e5. And now the problem is, because this knight is on c3, we cannot put a knight not even here, and we cannot even go on e8, which is typical idea, and then regrouping the knight from c7 to e6. Praggnanandhaa has one game here. It's a recent game from YKNZ 2025. He played against one forest knight h5. And now this knight is usually trapped here on h5 after the move g4 if the bishop is on g7. And of course they need to keep the track on the f4 square. The point of this variation is it's really forced and it's really tactical. So both sides has to be really careful. Like firstly, we are having ideas of taking on e5 now. It means white needs to protect that pawn. And now knight e4. So we are asking for trades, and this is typical reaction that if they take, they're just giving you time, tempo, and then hitting this knight. Also, they're losing the defender over this pawn, and this knight is making more and better comfortable way home, most probably on e6. So that's why they're playing d3, not taking, guarding the f4 square. And after castles, g4 seems like, oh, we are dropping the piece, and now it's game over. But then suddenly, since this is all forcing, we are having the move d5. And this move is amazing. The reason why, it's because after g takes h5, white can simply resign after the move bishop g4. Because we sacrifice the piece, but on the other side we are regaining the piece since there is no way how they can additionally protect this knight. Simply this knight will be gone. On the other way, if they firstly, let's say, take here, and we take back and they go knight b1, it seems like this knight is still trapped because of this pawn here, but after we take this pawn with bishop and queen takes there, after queen e5, it's simple double attack on two pieces, and also bishop is sort of trapped, so they have problems, and we're gonna regain the piece with much better structure and safer king, while white king is also open. So after the move d5, white needs to know the move h3, which is also played in the game, and one forest know this. After that a6, bishop a4, and now we go knight e6. So there is some reason why it's not good to start with b5 immediately, because I think there is some forcing variation of, I think knight takes, here takes, and then take on b5, where white is achieving a more comfortable endgame, where he has too many passed pawns. That's why it's better to go with a knight back first, like your idea of b5 and c4 will not run away anywhere, and after g takes h5 to go now b5, and after bishop to b3 to go c4, where you're actually regaining the piece. And now here comes the fight, like something what happened in their game. Van Forest decided to dry the game a little bit. For example, h6, bishop h8, takes, they traded the queens, then he also took on c4. And this is very playable position. White is having this development domination, while this bishop is closed, but on the other side there is a bishop pair, which can be tricky. Also, these pawns are not too much comfortable for the endgame. If black managed to take them, it's going to be scary. Also, b line is open, and I can totally say that black is having very easy play here. Even though I think white needs to aim for trading process since we have a bishop pair, and that's actually what happened in the game after a couple of moves after they agree on the draw. But yeah, I mentioned that this line g6 is possible, but it's not convenient for the main repertoire. I'm recommending queen c7 as the main move, but you can time to time surprise your opponents with the move g6 because it's really tricky. Anyway, queen c7. Another point is, I mean, if they take the knight here, you're gonna always retake with your queen, with your pawn on d, because you're gonna transpose later in the similar variations with queen c7, which we're gonna analyze after this. Because on this move order, there is also an option for them to take here immediately. But firstly, we're gonna cover the main line with knight c3. So after queen c7, many players are just castling here. d3 can also transpose later to the same position. So after castles knight e4, here we are jumping with a knight. That's important move for us because we want to destabilize this knight on f3, and later on you will see one incredible idea that happened in the game, another game from Praggnanandhaa. So now rook e1 is the most popular move. And after move a6, this bishop goes on f1. That's also the point of rook e1, not just protecting the pawn on e4, it's also vacating the square for the bishop on f1. And now the main move that we wanted to play, and that's the move knight g4. So we have a simple threat. And if your opponent falls for that, the game is already over. So knight takes f3, and then queen takes h2. The most popular move, and the most logical move, and the move that everyone will play in this position, even though they know the variations, is the move g3. It's simply stopping every single attack of black with one move, and that's it. The trickier move is if white knows is the move e5, where everything is really forced and both sides needs to know the variation. We're gonna check that later. But firstly, we're gonna speak about the move g3, because that's the most topical move and like practical move, easiest to calculate on the board, no one will risk with e5 and so on. In that case, we are taking on f3. It's important to take, otherwise that there is no point of being knight on g4. Take, queen takes, and now knight e5. And the point is to bring the knight on c6, play e6, play d6, put the pieces here, and just start pushing these pawns on the queen side. It will look very similar to the close Sicilian. Let me show you. After queen e2, e6, let's say d3, d6, that's how it went from one of the Praggnanandhaa's games. Knight c6, f4, bishop e7, and castles together with bishop d7. And you've seen here that black is just not having any single problem. There is not even any sort of attack on the king side, which is amazing to say. The main idea is now to start pushing the pawns on this side of the board, which actually happened in one of their games. White tried something with g4, and then b5, h4, knight e4. So these pawns look scary on the first glance, but these pawns are just not going anywhere. Since our pawns are too behind, our pawns are not easily reachable, and in the meanwhile we are providing already the counterplay from the c line to the b line and so on. You can see also how it went in the game. Praggnanandhaa managed also to open up here. And even though white tried something on the king side, there's just simply nothing. The fortress is very easy to handle and position is very stable for black. Anyway, there is also idea here, instead of going d3, is to go b3 for white, which is more topical, but it's really hard to find this over the board if white doesn't know the theory. The point is simply to put this bishop here and then anyway later to go with a move f4, then e5, and then trying to control these dark squares on this diagonal. Your plan is very much the same. You want to bring your knight here, play d6, trying to occupy d4 square and so on. But just to tell you that this move is better than the move d3 in this position. And the move that is better than g3 is the move e5. In that case, we need to eliminate this knight again. But there is also one option to play the move h5. This move is tricky, but the way how white should react on that is just to play the move h3. And then simply you're entering the same line. You just needed to do it immediately to take on f3. So not to play h5 immediately, you just take immediately, you're in the same line. But the point of this h5 is if they go knight e5. And here can come some very tricky stuff, like queen c6, knight takes d4, c takes d4, knight f4, g5, and suddenly these pawns becomes a little bit scary on the king side. Even though they eliminate the h5 pawn, there's some queen e6 protecting the knight, h3, knight e5, d3, d6, you know. Something opens there, but it's very sharp. You can try this h5 line. It's inside this PGN course, I'm gonna put in the description. But what I'm really recommending is to go with just knight takes f3, and here just many players can respond with queen takes. G takes f3 is better. Queen takes is more natural, and what people are falling for here is after knight takes e5, they're just playing queen to g3, and they're not understanding that after d6, like, is just better. We're just simply having pawn, and you know, our next moves are very natural. We can even castle long, if that's faster to you. There is no attack in the middle. I think that after something like knight to d5, we can just safely go back even to d8. I think we can also just play queen c6 here. The position is very easy. When they hit our knight with something like f4, we can bring the knight back here, then push e6, and our position is very safe. That's why g takes f3, knight takes e5, d4, c takes, knight e5, queen d6. This is a little bit forcing line, and it's going in some direction to one endgame, where we have so many pawns, but we sacrifice the piece with black. But also white needs to be aware of this line to play it. But I can tell you honestly that after the move knight g4, everyone will play here the move g3. That's something I faced myself so many times. And even those stronger opponents will play this, not risking to go with e5 because it's very straightforward. But anyway, all of this will be inside this PGN file, so you can explore it yourself. Okay, so yeah, that's actually this line with knight e4 and knight g4. So you're targeting on the king side, you have these checkmate threats, you also have these ideas of h5 and so on. This queen is beautifully positioned here and having a lot of ideas for the king side attack. So the other version of this opening is if they go with bishop takes c6 here, which is also something what people do so much in this version of Rosalima. But this is actually a nice way of telling your opponent that you're playing similar line like g6, but you didn't play g6, which is actually a benefit, because this bishop usually goes on e7, even though you play g6 line. What it means, like, let's say now they play something normal like d3, and now you go queen c7, which is something I explained you, that queen c7 is typical here. You want to push e5 and support the center. And now what also I faced in my games, people are just automatically playing this move, and this is classical club level approach, because they're stopping bishop g4, but my point is not to go bishop g4. I don't want to put my bishop there. Like, I don't need this pin. This pin is not annoying to white at all. You always have even knight bd2. Like, I'm not gonna do anything with this. And this is something what white plays just automatically. On the Grandmaster level, in Praggnanandhaa's games, I didn't see this. I seen something different. I'll show you what I seen. But I can recommend this very much, because now we go e5. This is the point of queen c7, by the way, to protect the pawn. And now when they castles, automatically here, we realize the hook with g4. And that's why h3 is dubious decision in white's camp. Because after g5 and g4, they're gonna feel this attack very much. And that's why h3 is not good to play that early, and not to castle together with h3, of course. And now pretty much the only move for them to stop this idea is to go bishop g5. Otherwise, if they play something else, like let's say they just develop, they ignore you, you just go here g5. And if they take bishop takes back, let's say like this, we have just this move bishop takes h3. And then, as you see here, there is a very big pin here, and if they take your knight, I think you can at least take bishop takes g2, and then some discovery will happen, and game is over. Or if they take here, you have at least h6 and winning this bishop back. And that's just total domination on the kingside attack. So that's the point of rook g8. So that's why bishop g5. And here I can recommend just to develop this bishop on e6. And if they want to bring the knight to c4, you just pull this knight back, and your next idea is to go f6, and then again h5, even g5, h5, g4, and so on, just to open up the fire on the king side. So let's say they play knight c4 here, f6, defending the pawn in the middle, attacking the bishop, bishop e3, and even longside castles, with a very, very comfortable game. And you see that there is no vision on the queen side how they're gonna break through. Usually they are doing that with b4, but I think our attack with g5, g4 is much faster. So at this point, when you play the move e5, they shouldn't castle. Maybe they should play something like knight bd2 or bishop e3. That's something very logical to me. Anyway, we are just developing our pieces. We like to include this move h6 because g5 will be automatically there later. You don't need to support it with the move rook g8. On any sort of a4, you can include a5 just to stack the structure on the queen side. And on any b3, they're sort of preparing this move knight to c4. So you're playing here the move bishop e6. And when they play the move knight c4, if this pawn is back, you can take the knight. But when this pawn is on b3, if you take now the knight, that's not good. Because after b takes, you're simply allowing your opponent to open up this line, and that's actually your weakness in the long term, where white will be better. In that case, you're not taking, you're playing knight to d7, so you don't have option of taking. You are retreating your knight, defending the pawn, and still planning to push f6 later again, g5, h5, and so on. Depends where the where is the king of white. Another tip for this structure is to not put your bishop never on d6, because your bishop on d6 is very poorly placed here, since it will run into the attack. And even though this bishop looks bad, this bishop is great defender, and it will enter so many problems when this knight jumps to c4. So my recommendation is keep these bishops on e7, e6, and in case of the attack on e5 pawn, retreat the knight to d7. That's the point of this system with e5. So for them it's actually better to, instead of going the move h3 here, if they want to play this way, to play e5 here, or after d3, queen c7, now to play e5, which is even much better. The thing with this move is, knight is generally coming to c7 by rotating from d5, c7, e6. But now, since we have queen on c7, this is the best possible move order for white in this scenario. So after knight e5, c4, we simply need to go on b4. Knight to b6 is not good piece, because simply later you don't have very gonna put your knight. Like, your knight is not belonging to d7, not even to c8. You need your knight somehow to get to c7 square, and that's the route from going here, here, and here. Yeah, looks ugly, but this knight, after we move the queen, will come on c7 at some point, and then later back to on e6. In meanwhile, we wanna develop our pieces. Bishop comes usually on f5, followed by rook d8, and applying the pressure on this pawn. This bishop usually goes on g7, and there is the way how you're putting the bishop there. You can go g6, but you can also go h6 and g5, and then bishop g7. For example, queen e2, rook d8, rook d1. g6 in this case, we simply need quick development. Bishop f4, typical move, and we go bishop g7, h3. It's a very useful move, not just aiming for the idea later for g4, it's also creating the square for the bishop back and prophylaxis for the king. h6, we want to apply the same to go g5. Let's say knight c3, g5, bishop goes somewhere back, and queen c8 is a nice prophylactical move. We are not castling, we would like to bring our knight to the game. If we can safely approach d4, retreat the bishop here, we're gonna have amazing position for the middle game. Position is complicated because structure is very weird. It's half closed position, and you need to be careful of some d4 moves. That's the white plan. If white doesn't play the move d4, he can easily enter weaker position, since we have open d line and the pressure on this weakness on d3. So at some point, white needs to push the move d4. So in this position, they can also start with e5 immediately, or after take, they can play e5 here. It's not good immediately to do that. The reason why, now this knight has the rook for c7 and e6, and we are achieving that faster, so we don't need to waste the time on going the knight here, moving the queen so much, and so on. So when they play here something like d3, for example, which is a typical move, now the funny story is that we go h6 first, and let's say they castles, now we go g5. And the point of that is not really you're gonna attack the king side. Your main point is to develop the bishop, and this is a really nice pawn structure, since when you move your knight back, you're not allowing bishop to come to f4. So something like, something like rook e1, bishop g7, knight c3, b6, bishop d2, castles, knight e4. You see that you don't even need to regroup your knight, since your knight is not under the attack. If they do that, of course, your knight won't go here and here. And there is no need to put your bishop on f5 for now. What is amazing here, you can go immediately f6, which forces the trade, and next moves are f5, which just tells your bishop getting open, and that's something you want. Let's say knight g3, f5, c4, knight f6. So just amazing position for black. The whole point is open up, go here, put a bishop on f5, here, here, and just aim for this long-term bishop pair advantage. And that's it. In the other scenario, they can also play h3, but this is something very similar to the previous variation that I told you, that usually this h3 is always met in the future with a problem of, you know, g5 and g4. So they can do it. They can do it, of course, but now after g5, we're gonna simply have a very same position. So yeah. After the move knight f6, we specifically covered all these main lines. And let's take a look once again what is the alternatives here also. There is an option to go knight e4 immediately without queen c7, but it's less painful for white. They have this e5 move, and now you're entering some very forcing lines where black needs to know the theory. For example, you need to take the knight on the bishop on b5. They take back to play knight e5, and after knight g5, h6 is the move here, but this allows knight f7 and then queen f3. You need to get out with your king on g6, and this position is playable, but kings on g6 is not safe. According to engines, this is still, you know, around equality, but it's just crazy engine lines where black king is safe, but overall, in practice, if you're not aware of this, if you don't have any experience, you can run into the practical trouble. So I'm not recommending to jump immediately. That's something what people are doing, but much better is to go to move queen c7 like Praggnanandhaa is doing usually. And there is an option for them to go d3 here, where we can just jump immediately back. So it's not the position like earlier where we have queen a5 and then knight e4. Here, after bishop c4 and a6, let's say, we are achieving this position from the, I think it's called, so when they go this move, knight c3, knight c6, bishop b5, and then we go here knight to d4, they go knight to f3. Here we play, I think, a6, then knight f6, and this is some sort of this position. Yeah, this is just transposition into that. They'll play d3, play a6, queen c7. Yeah, we are typically achieving this structure. So that's the point. And after d3, we go knight e4, bishop c4, a6. We are planning to push b5. When they take, and now e6 is perfectly there to just completely freeze this diagonal of the bishop. Next is to bring the center up with pawns and to get some space, specifically because you also want to eliminate your double structure, takes. If they decide to take here, I think that also we got some compensation for that, if I'm not mistaken. But in the worst case scenario, you can just defend this with bishop c5. And now this pawn is safe, very safe. You can go b5, bishop b7, castles, and so on. And yeah, here after knight e4, there's also one interesting move b4 here, but this is just some gambit that white needs to be aware of that. I'm not really sure that anyone will play this, but you just need to know c takes before, knight takes, b takes, and here simply they need to play some rook e1 move, because the pawn is hanging here, and maybe you don't have development, but you're gonna create a quick development with just e6 and bishop somewhere out, and your castles is on the way. So this is nothing special. You just need to know these few moves like rook e1, a6, e5, knight e5, and after bishop f1, I guess you can play whatever. Like, I guess e6, bishop e7, b5, bishop e7, and like he's having amazing position. So yeah, we finished with this variation that I wanted to bring it up here. I'm trying to see, is there anything else that I need to show you? No, that's actually it. I hope you like this video, and I think that this repertoire with black pieces, Praggnanandhaa, shows a really big knowledge here, and with a big surprise in your games, you can achieve definitely good results. If you want to check it out, you have the PGN of this video, so you can visit the link in the description. And if you want to see something more about some openings, you can check this video here, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.